Early on in the game, you are able to find a cat right outside of Victor's clinic that you're able to pet and be on your merry way. It's an interesting interaction, though specifically considering we see almost no animals in Cyberpunk. Diving into some of the lore of the game, we can see that most, if not all, of the wildlife in Night City is dying or has died out many decades before the game due to diseases. And on top of this, there are some lines from NPCs like Takamura about cats and dogs particularly being driven out of the cities and to death. So seeing a cat in the middle of a busy area is actually a very rare occurrence, if not totally unheard of. But it only gets more weird from here. You see, if you are able to stumble upon cat food in the open world and bring it back to right outside the dumpster of your main apartment, the exact same cat will spawn there shortly after. You are able to bring the cat to your apartment as a pet, and upon scanning him, you can see his name is Nibbles. But the weirdest part is all the places we see Nibbles elsewhere, particularly in many cutscenes with Johnny, like this one, where the cat apparently jumps to its death following Johnny, and many others, including the same cat years ago in flashbacks as Johnny Silverhand. And most eerily, in every single instance, no one else notices the cat. For such a rare animal, people should be more freaked out or excited, but no matter what, in every instance, the only people that see Nibbles are you and Johnny. And taking a look at Nibbles himself, we uncover even more. Nibbles is a specific breed of hairless cat called a Sphinx. And for those of you that don't know, the Sphinx is seen as a spiritual guardian in ancient Egyptian teachings that can guide humans to the afterlife. An interesting coincidence for sure. Either way, something sinister is happening here with Nibbles. Whether he is a ghost, demon, or guardian angel, this seemingly harmless cat is a lot more than just your pet. Cyberpunk has a lot of different endings to the game depending on what you choose to do at the very end. But in my opinion, the coolest ending, maybe not my favorite, but the coolest is for sure giving up your body to Johnny Silverhand and taking the fight to Arasaka with Rogue and the old crew. The mission takes you on a helicopter ride through Night City, and it has you blasting your way through Arasaka HQ. It's non-stop adrenaline fun. But something many players may have missed at the start of this ending is the implications as to what Rogue has been up to. When Johnny first confronted Rogue at the Afterlife bar asking for help, he brings up the question of how Rogue is doing so well in the first place. Everyone else in the old crew that originally was a part of planting that nuclear bomb in Arasaka Tower is either dead or wishing they were. All except for Rogue. And in this scene, it is heavily implied that may be for a reason. You see, earlier in the game, if you continue down Johnny's side quest line, at one point, in an attempt to find and kill Atom Smasher, you find instead an Arasaka agent, Grayson. And while you may not know Grayson, Rogue, who is with you, certainly does. And Grayson even remarks on how he finds it funny that they are not playing for the same team anymore. These two instances heavily imply that Rogue sold out to the corpo lifestyle after the fall of Johnny Silverhand, and explains perfectly how she was able to retain power and take over the afterlife and become one of the most well-known fixers in Night City. Especially considering Arasaka would have wanted her dead otherwise, her being able to walk free is quite peculiar. This likely means Rogue turned against Johnny after his death, and only after seeing him come back to life through V's body does she realize the error in her ways and begin to once again fight against the corpos. Even more damning though, some corpo gigs in the game show that Arasaka and other corporations were being fed information by a classified fixer helping them out. Could this fixer be Rogue? And if it is, just how much power and leverage has she given the corporations in Night City over the past decades? The more you dig into this mystery, the more you realize the person that Johnny held so close may have done more harm to his cause than anyone he knows. Something very hard to come to terms with. Another interesting contradiction you most likely missed on your first playthrough of Cyberpunk is Johnny Silverhand's mysterious and missing blood types. You see, in the game when you see Johnny's dog tags, it's clearly labeled as him having 0 NEG blood type. But in the Never Fade Away mission flashback to his life before, when he was being helped by a doctor after being brutally attacked, you can see his vitals on a screen next to Johnny's body. And those vitals read Johnny's blood type as AB-RHD+. This could be an analogy to the scene in the Pista Sophia, where Johnny gives V the dog tags of a soldier who saved him in war. The soldier's name was Robert John Linder, Johnny's birth name. That man had to die for the legend of Johnny Silverhand to be born. But with the implication that his blood type also changed, this theory gets a lot more interesting. As we know, in many wars, fighters would be captured and experimented on in the Cyberpunk universe, with rumors of some even mutating enemies into entirely new organisms. Could Robert John Linder have undergone more than just a metaphorical death? And could Johnny Silverhand actually be the product of a war crime experiment gone wrong, that warped a man's mind and biology into something completely different? Just when you thought Johnny's life couldn't get any more tragic, there seems to be some light implications that it could be even worse. And in the world of Cyberpunk, nothing is off the table. Cold Mirage is actually an easily accessible gig in Cyberpunk, but one that a lot of people miss since it's off the beaten path. The mission tasks you with opening a freezer at a set of hidden coordinates, and when you arrive, you stumble upon what looks to be the body of Raish Bartmoss. For those that don't know, Bartmoss is regarded in Cyberpunk as the legendary hacker who took down the original net in the universe to stop corpo and government control. A genius and eccentric man, Bartmoss believed cyberspace was the real world, and took on Netwatch in a never-ending battle of wits, as well as assisting Alt Cunningham against Arasaka on the dime of Militech. He believed aliens and conspiracy were at the center of politics, and fought to reveal the secrets of this to the world. So finding him dead in a freezer in the middle of a landfill is a big moment. After all, this is the most well-known hacker of all time. And as the story goes, Netwatch was able to finally shut him down and kill him in cryogenic stasis, something that seems to be confirmed when you find the body here. But after searching the freezer, you find an old cyberdeck you can bring back to Nyx at the afterlife, and after he tries to hack into it, it actually fries his circuits and forces him to pass out, to which you have to save him. So what secrets is Bartmoss hiding on his deck? And more importantly, when we were at the freezer and scanned the body, why did nothing come up? Is this really Raish Bartmoss dead in the freezer? Or is this simply another game the famous genius is up to? Does he live in our real world to this day, or has his mind escaped to the net? It is implied in multiple data entries throughout the world of Cyberpunk that Bartmoss lives on in one way or another, with multiple hackers on the dark net expressing concern that recent ICE and injection protocols showing up on the deep net resemble some of the old work of Bartmoss. Either way, the legendary hacker in all of Cyberpunk's history most definitely has something else left up his sleeve.